If you want, you can also go back and click another option other than standard. So present, and then click that one. No, just keep it standard.
I don't know why it's not full screen.
Okay, I think that's okay. It shows the full thing. I'm gonna check from YouTube quickly.
No,
and then I feel
I'm
like
trying to change it, see if it works. No. Nope. This better?
with the screen.
Hmm.
It didn't change for me. It's okay. So I think we should be live on YouTube now.
Yeah, it is.
And with the screen. Oops, sorry. I didn't mean to have that bounce back. Okay, so this is where I'm just saying it's wrong. It looks like a square on YouTube as well. Like it's not the full screen. So can you try I can try sharing my screen actually.
Okay, you try sharing your screen.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, Zoha. We weren't expecting this. Okay. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, Sasha. We should be good to go. I'm going to enter the people in the waiting room. And then, are we all good to start? I'm going to turn off my video. Okay, sounds great.
Can I start?
Yeah,
Should
whenever
I
you're,
wait?
no, whenever you're ready.
Okay.
That's 7:05, yeah. It's basically that in like 2 seconds.
Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to our second informative event of the year. My name is Sasha, and I am the virtual content creator for the Bright Future Dentist team. Writing an effective personal statement is the aim of our workshop today, and this is why we have invited a very special guest today to speak about the importance of writing a strong and engaging personal statement.
Hello guys, my name is Crystal and I am the Virtual Outreach Coordinator on the Bright Future Dentist team. I am super excited to be able to host an event that helps to familiarize students with the daunting task of writing a personal statement, but worry not. After this workshop, that daunting task will be as easy as brushing your teeth.
So moving on to our agenda, firstly, we have a tiny introduction about our club. Then we have a disclaimer, and then Zoha is going to introduce herself. And then we're going to move into questionnaires. And then at the end, we're going to have a question and answers, a Q&A session where you can ask your questions either by unmuting yourself or by typing it in the chat. Okay, so we wanted to just talk about our club, Bright Future Dentists. So Bright Future Dentists is a pre-dental student organization that is committed to helping students on their pathway to dentistry, whether it's through workshops or webinars such as this, in-person events, or through networking and mentoring. We aim to brighten your path to becoming a dental student. Crystal, do you want to say how they can keep track of their hours?
Yeah, and as always, if you're a general member, don't forget to record your own hours. Keep a tab on the name of the event, the date, and the number of hours you attended the event. If you also post our event on your story, you will gain hours. Every 4 posts is equivalent to 1 hour of volunteering. Keep a screenshot of the post and tag our page in the story.
So just a quick disclaimer before we start, the journey everyone takes is different. And so the advice and suggestions that you may hear today may not work for you. So make sure to always do your own research and do your own research. So without further ado, we would like to pass the stage to our lovely speaker so they can introduce themselves.
Thank you for the lovely introduction to your organization. I think you all are doing some great work. And this question, who is Zoha, is something that I've been struggling with on a personal level, but we won't get to it because that's not the topic of our conversation today here. So I'll just briefly introduce myself. I am, as I said, Zoha, and I go by pronouns she and her, and I currently am in my 3rd year of dental school at University of Toronto Faculty of Dentistry. I can talk a little bit more about my journey to dental school. Maybe there are some of you folks who are taking similar paths to what I took to dental school. So maybe you can relate to my experiences, and if you have any questions about any details, I'd be happy to answer those. So I completed my undergraduate degree in physiology and human bio, I think, from University of Toronto. Back a long time ago. I think it's 2017, and I always wanted to do something that had more of impact on people. So that's what led me to do my master's in public health from McMaster University. It was a new program at that time, so there was a lot of opportunity for me to just do what I wanted. So I ended up doing a lot of research in global health and really built those skills in epidemiology and statistics because I knew those were the skills that would help me, have an impact on folks. While I was there, I got interested in teaching, and that's also how I ended up in consulting, but that's a story for later. So in teaching, I was really interested in, finding the most effective ways to communicate your information, information that you're presenting. How can you be a better educator that your students like? So learned a lot about teaching from McMaster's McPherson Institute. And then while I was in my master's program, something happened, and I found myself interested in doing dentistry. And then I started my long journey of looking at the whole application process. Where am I applying? I had no idea that DAT even existed. I didn't know that there's only 2 schools in Ontario, 2 dental schools. All of that, learning from scratch. Google was my best friend. And because I worked on my writing skills over the course of my undergrad and master's program, I took a lot of courses, I felt that personal statements or essays wouldn't be a big deal, but I was very wrong. It's a completely different beast, and we'll talk more about strategies that you can use to really write a strong personal statement. So all of that work that comes with being a pre-dental, like getting your shadowing hours, getting your applications ready, especially if you're applying to schools abroad, it's just a completely different system that you have to understand. So I can really empathize with all the folks who are applying right now. Having been there, I know it's not an easy journey, and sometimes it's really easy to just get lost in the process, but there are people who are here to support you. Please seek help whenever you need it. But anyways, that's how I ended up at U of T. And first 2 years were COVID years. This year is the first non-COVID year for me, which is why I've just been all over the place. But we can talk more about dental school as well. And I think with that background mentioned there, I also want to mention that because I was so interested in writing, because I learned how to write personal statements through online resources, I really thought that there needs to be resources for other folks to be able to learn those skills and apply them, not just to get into dental school, but throughout dental school and beyond. In case you're planning to specialize or if you want to do research, writing is something that you need to know no matter where you go. So that's how I ended up providing these personal statement editing services and interview preparation as well, because preparing for interviews is another different learning curve for me, and I'd be happy to talk about that whenever the time is.
Okay, so thank you so much, Zoha, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us here today. So we have a lot of questions, so let's jump into them right away. Our first question is, how important is the personal statement to your application package?
So it really depends on what schools you're applying to. I'll use U of T as an example. So University of Toronto didn't start asking for personal statements and those 2 essay questions until very recently. I can't recall if my cohort was the first year or the second year, but it's very new. And some programs are very transparent about how they use different application materials. So they'll tell you, for example, Western tells you that, this is your reading comprehension score that you need to, I don't know if it stays on their website, but I've heard from folks that you need to have a certain reading comprehension score on your DAT to be able to meet the cutoff, basically. Other schools have GPA cutoffs. Some are explicitly mentioned on their website, others are implicit. But I think overall, if a school is asking for a personal statement, then I think that's your chance to tell your story. And if we do end up working together, you'll see that I really focus on storytelling, because if you look at different students who are interested in pursuing dental school, a lot of them have very similar experiences. So some folks may, like a lot of them will have interest in dentistry from their own treatment that they received as a child, whether that was like braces or maybe they were born with missing teeth and they got some prosthodontic treatment and they saw that their own life was changed. Other students are interested in dentistry because they grew up seeing their parents or other family members pursue that passion. So the reasons for pursuing dentistry are very similar across a lot of pre-dental students, but what helps you stand apart from all of the other people is your individual story and your reflection on your life experiences and how you articulate that in your personal statement. So I really like to tell people that, yes, you have to submit a personal statement, but don't let the personal statement be just your resume or extracurricular activities list. It has to be a reflection of who you are as a person and how have all those experiences that you've been through made you who you are, and why does the faculty or any school, why do they need to let you into the program? And that's personal statement is your chance to tell your story and tell them that, hey, these are my life experiences. This is what I've learned from them. And this is why you need to take me, because I bring so much to this school and I bring so much to the profession. So I think personal statement is super important and it has to be done right way. It's not just a description or sentence from I've done XYZ. It goes much beyond that. And if it doesn't go beyond that, it's not going to get read to its full page length.
Thank you so much for your answer. Crystal is going to ask you the next question.
Well, that was very informative and very inspiring as well. And it feels like you already answered some of our questions as well.
Okay, I'll leave now.
You were like really. So we have another question. How should a personal statement be organized? Is there any ideal format for this?
So I have 2 ways. So it depends on who I'm working with. I'll share the 2 ways and then I'll share what I did in my own personal statements. So I think you can take 2 different angles to your personal statement, or any question rather. For example, U of T's biggest accomplishment essay, I think this applies to that question as well. First is argumentative or persuasive essay type, where you can have a thesis statement, which is you say, I am interested in dentistry, or I want to pursue this profession for XYZ. So you have your 3-4 reasons, and the rest of your personal statement just elaborates on those 3 to 4 points. And then at the end, you bring everything together. So that's one way. And then the second way is more of a storytelling, which I think is harder to write, but I think it's also so much more impactful because it doesn't follow that boring structure of, thesis, and like it doesn't sound like an essay, it shows who you are. But there's different ways you can go with storytelling as well. You can have a chronological order where you start, it all started when I was born, or you can start from present time, give a glimpse into your past, and then you bring everything together to your present, and you can also give an insight into your future. So there's different ways to write your personal statement. I like stories, so I think that the story format gives you more creativity to show what your skills are. But if you're someone who's taken a lot of like humanities or arts or literature courses, then I think the argumentative or persuasive essay format is also something that you can use.
Okay, our next question is, how long does it usually take to write a personal statement?
I'll say a year. Like the day you decide you want to be a dentist or you want to be a doctor, you need to start brainstorming ideas for your personal statement. I've had like so for me, I took a year off after my master's, and because that year I didn't work, I wasn't in school because I really wanted it to work out for me and I didn't want to spread myself too thin. So anyways, I spent 6 months after I defended my thesis just learning about how to write a personal statement. And I familiarized myself with the system, and I would have like bullet points, things that I want to talk about for different schools. I've seen that a lot of people write one personal statement and they copy paste it for all schools. Please don't do that. If you're applying to American dental school, then yes, only one statement goes to every school. But if you're applying to Canadian school, copy pasting the same personal statement is not a good idea. Personalize your personal statement to each school and tell them why is it their school that you care about. Why are you applying to UBC, for example? Like why in particular, or why do you care? So I think if you personalize every statement to each school you're applying to, and by the time you get to a final product, I don't think that the natural process of reflection and writing comes to you over a span of days or hours. You need to sit with those ideas. Like if you ask me, like, Zoha, you did your master's, can you add this to your personal statement? The reflections that I need to do to see how my master's program made me a better candidate for dental school and eventually a better dentist. It's not something that I'm going to dream of overnight. This is something that I have to sit with, think of, and then put those ideas into my personal statement and refining it, editing it to the level that it represents who you are as a person and it's grammatically correct. There's no issues with writing. I think it's a very long process, and please don't leave it until last minute because it's going to stress you out and it's not going to be done well either.
All right. So for instance, I have a spark that led me to choose this profession. So what are some things that I can write about?
I can't answer this question because you need to tell me. We need to sit down and think about why do you want to pursue this profession in the first place, right? And a lot of times you can try this with your family members or your friends. Sit with them and have them ask you why you want to do dental school. A lot of times we don't have a reason that comes to the top of our mind, and that I think is a red flag. Dental school is not easy. If you're not sure that you want to do it, please don't do it. So it's okay if you don't have that light bulb moment that a lot of people have, like maybe like you didn't have those life-changing experiences, but maybe there is something about dentistry that helps you live a life that you want to live, right? So you have to ask yourself, maybe it's not, I don't like teeth, but what else is dentistry about that I'm willing to spend $200,000 minimum, unless you go to McGill, $200,000, 4 years of school, and so much work that goes into this program. and then you have the rest of your life to live that career. So sit with yourself and think, okay, I don't have that stereotypical light bulb moment that a lot of people have. I don't have that spark, but why do I still want to put myself down this path? And you need to have, I keep going back to these 3 to 4 reasons. You need to have your reasons, because if you don't have your reasons on top of your head, they're not going to come through in your personal statement, and they're not going to shine through in your interview either. So I don't think that you need to have a spark, but I do think you need to have reasons. It can be 1 reason, it can be 2, it can be 3, but you need to have a reason to pursue this program, because I'm telling you, 3rd year is brutal, but it doesn't, I don't mean to say 1st and 2nd year we're not, but 3rd year is a different level of beast. And if you're not sure that this is what you want to do some more reflection and then decide if you want to do it still.
Oh, that was really well said. Okay, so our next question is, I'm not the best at writing. Can I still write an engaging and impactful personal statement?
100% yes. I immigrated to Canada. Like, I don't want this to be my life story, but I like stories, as you should already know by now. I was not that great in English writing and speaking didn't come to me naturally. I think it's because of the schooling system I was in, but I was able to understand writing and like listening as well. So I think over the course of just having to write again and again, I thought that I like learned certain skills that helped me become the writer that I am today. I think that writing is like, I can't think of an example, but it's like the more you do it the right way, the better you become at it. And if you are not the person who, like, I'm not the person who can use, those like really sophisticated words and like nuanced sentence structures. Like, if you read my writing, it sounds very boring, but I think I know my strength is that I get my point across like fast and clearly, which is maybe part of the, my training in public health and science as well. So if you're not someone who is the best writer in the world, see where your strengths are and see what your writing style is. Maybe you're someone who is great at, maybe writing argumentative essays, and maybe that's the kind of personal statement you want to have. So really see where your strengths are. And this is where working with another person can be very helpful. If you're still in school, there are writing centers at almost every university, and you can book a session with them, and they'll sit with you for an hour or so and go over your personal statement and give you a rough idea of what they think it sounds like. I went to them every week. I knew all of them on first name basis. And when I stopped going to them after submitting my application, they would ask me, like, they would see me and ask me, like, Zoha, what's up? Why we haven't seen you in so long? Like, that's a free resource. Well, not free, you're paying through your tuition, but please make use of, all of these services that you have available. A lot of those people have like PhDs in writing that no other person can help you with. But if you find like other people, like maybe your friend is in English or a great writer, ask your friends, they'll do it for free. Ask your family members, get different perspectives, and really like work with other people to get an idea of what, like, how your draft is currently before making further modifications to it.
Thank you so much for that, Zoha. And I know it's really important to reach out to people who are, the best at writing, so they can help you as well. So our next question is, oftentimes personal statements start with an impactful story or an event. So should I also include a story in my personal statement?
I'm going to ask that question to the audience, like, after listening to me for 20 minutes, do you think you should add stories in your personal statement? I'm like looking at the chat right now. But while you guys are telling me if you should have stories, I find that a lot of people, when I work with like prenatal clients, I see that we can get so fixated on finding the right start to our personal statement. And that's writer's block, right? Because you're so focused on finding the best way to say something that you're not even able to say what you want to say. So in those times, like one way to overcome that writer's block is to leave the intro alone, leave the conclusion, and focus on the body paragraphs. And then based on how your body paragraphs are reading, you can go back and maybe like when you're writing your body paragraphs, you like thought of a story or like something that sounded really nice in your head. You can put it into words, but don't try to come up with like the most engaging, impactful intro right away, because it's very rare that it'll come to you the first time. But also writing is a reiterative process that sometimes there was this one time, I can't remember if it was for my master's program or dental school, but I compared the first draft that I wrote for my personal statement to the personal statement I actually submitted. It was completely different. The only thing that was similar was the ideas and like stories that I shared. But in terms of structure, flow, logic, the word choice, almost everything changed because again, it's a process, right? So if you can't think of like a great story to start, you can come back to it or brainstorm something to really have an engaging start.
Our next question is, should I explain a low GPA or lack of extracurricular activities when writing my personal statement?
So some schools actually ask you, so if you're applying to states, they may have supplemental application. And then in those supplemental application questions, they may ask you, like, can you explain any discrepancies or any like, anything happened during your academic career that led to a low GPA or any challenges you faced? So I think that is a good space to elaborate on it. But at the same time, because not every school asks that question, I think that if there was a significant life experience that you faced or went through, I think it may be a good idea to include it. I think that framing is very important. So you can, for example, if somebody got really sick, got COVID in like 2021, right? And they weren't able to focus on their schoolwork, and that led to like a low GPA, and there was a lack of extracurricular activities as well. So the way you can explain that is if you're going with the format of writing as a story, like writing your like expressing yourself in a story, you can say that, you know, one of the most significant experiences that I had recently was, you know, being hospitalized or being sick with COVID in blah, blah, blah year. This led me to, you know, not be able to focus on my academics, blah, blah, blah. And then you can say that maybe, you know, this helped you learn more about how to take care of yourself, your mental health. And then maybe you went back to school to really like redeem your scores or redeem your grades. So you're telling it again as a story, right? And it gives the reader an insight into who you are, what are some of your values, and how will you cope with challenges that come your way when you are in dental school, for example, right? So I think if you want, you can definitely explain a low GPA and lack of extracurricular activities, but don't put yourself down. Rather put it as, you know, something that you learned from the experience. And if you want, you can also write a sentence or two on how this is applicable to dental school or dentistry as a profession.
Thank you so much for that very informative answer, Zoha. So our next question is, what are some of the common mistakes that students do when writing their personal statements, and how can we avoid these mistakes?
I think I can speak from like the perspective of a writer, like when I was doing my personal statements, and also from like an editor or a coach perspective. I think from the perspective of a writer, when I was applying, I thought that I was really I wanted to list everything that I have ever done in my entire life. And if you're applying to US schools, 4,500 characters, including spaces and periods, like you're not getting your life story out there in that word character restriction. And I was trying so hard to fit in everything that I wanted to say that it just ended up becoming a list of things that I've done. There was no reflection, there was no critical analysis, there was no, me expressing my vision of why I want to be a dentist. So over the course of, working with other coaches, working with my friends and other people who are applying to, different programs, I had to pick a few things that I wanted to share in my personal statement. So quality over quantity. So think of what are your life experiences that really show who you are and depict the qualities of a great dentist, and elaborate on those specific life experiences rather than trying to put everything into those limited word counts that they give you to stick to for your personal statement. I see it as an editor and a coach as well. Like a lot of students, just when they book like a meeting with me, they show me their personal statement and it's just a list of things. And then when I work with them, I ask them, okay, yes, you told me about this club that you work with, you were president or secretary. Can you tell me, what did it mean for you to be a president of this club? And that's when I ask the type of questions that make people think. And that's where you get like the juice of personal statement. That's where you get the story that helps you stand out from the rest of the crowd who may have been a president of 50 clubs, right? And you've only done one. So I think that's like a common mistake. And I get it because I also wanted the dental school application committee to know everything that I've ever done. But you got to pick and choose. So quality over quantity. The other thing that I alluded to earlier as well, a lot of times people try to come up with the best, most beautiful structure of a sentence or paragraph the first time. And trust me, having written a lot, like in both science and non-science, writing does not come to people naturally a lot of times, especially if English is not your first language, which is my case. A lot of times I would write something and then I would have to go back and change it to a completely different thing. So just focus on getting your ideas out, and then you can come back and refine the ideas and make it sound beautiful or sophisticated. You can Google words, synonyms for, I don't know, use or utilize, and then you can put those words in. I think those are like the two common mistakes, and I'll leave it to that because I know we have more questions.
Thank you for that answer. So I think this is our last question. No, it's not. Never mind. Okay, so do you have any tips in order to make your personal statement stand out?
My number one tip is to share your story. If I was to give like a brief rundown or a checklist that I look at when I'm editing other people's personal statement or when I was reading my own, I think your personal statement should show the person reading it, like they should be able to tell what you value in life and what your life goal is. And they need to be able to know who you are other than your DAT scores, your Casper. They started giving you your scores. I don't know what they call it, but you know which quartile you're in. So they need to be able to see who you are as a person other than those numeric quantitative measures that are appended to your application anyways. It should also be like, yes, you have to share a story, but it should also be grammatically and spell check, grammatically correct. You need to do spell check, make sure you're, using the right English spellings for color and like other words, neighborhood, Canadian English versus States English. I don't know how much people care, but all of that to say is make sure you don't have spelling errors. And your grammar is okay. Your sentences need to make sense. And when I take a bigger picture and I take a step back, I also look at how is your structure of your essay? For example, if you are telling me, let's look at from the argumentative essay perspective, you told me, Zoha, I have 2 reasons to pursue dental school in your first paragraph, and then you give me 3 reasons, and the third reason just came out of nowhere. Like you never introduced it. And then you write your conclusion, and now you missed your first reason and you focus on the second and third reason. So make sure your overall structure makes sense. It's like a coherent piece of writing. So yes, stories are important, but I think the way you write it is also equally important. So don't leave editing and proofreading until the very end. So it has to be something that shows people who you are, but also shows people that you can write well, because you'll be doing a lot of notes when you start dental school and it never ends.
So I am not sure how to start writing my personal statement. So do you have any suggestions on how I could brainstorm my introduction?
Yeah, so I think I kind of already addressed this, but if you can't come up with the best introduction ever, go to your first paragraph, go to your second paragraph. Like you don't have to write your personal statement in the order as it would appear on your personal statement. The first thing you can do is have an outline. So your reasons for pursuing dental school, or if you're writing the story way, you can have, these are the experiences I want to mention. Make a list of those, and then you start populating that outline with details, reflections, and analysis. And then when you read the main body paragraphs, you may realize, well, I see like a common theme here. Maybe that can be my introduction. So you don't have to write your introduction the first thing in your personal statement. You can always start with conclusion if you want, if you have a really solid conclusion in mind.
So our last question is, should I focus more on writing about my work, volunteer, personal experiences, or should I focus more on academic achievements / stories?
Everything. But with that said, I know I mentioned you cannot add every possible thing that you've done, which is unfortunate, because as pre-dental students, I feel like we spend so much time developing those skills, doing research or running clubs, and we do so much impactful work, but it's unfortunate that we can't share all of that in personal statement. You can share more in your interviews, but I do think that you need to have a list of all of these experiences. And an exercise that I do with my clients that I meet with is I would ask you to have, for example, you did summer research in 2022. I'll ask you, can you tell me what exactly you did, like what your just job description ideally was, if you had any impact. So maybe in the beginning of the summer, you were really lost, which is very common, and you don't know what was going on. And towards the end, your lab hired a volunteer and you ended up training that volunteer. So that story shows your growth, right? So I'll ask you for what you did, what impact you had. Maybe you went to a conference and you won first prize for a poster presentation. That's an impact, right? And then I'll ask you, what skills do you think you developed from this extracurricular or work experience that you had? And you can have a sentence or 2 about that as well. And at this point, we're just brainstorming, right? We're not writing yet. And you do that with like most of the experiences that you think are something that you want to add in your personal statement. And then the last bit that I ask people is to really ask themselves, why does it matter? Right? So yes, you've done summer research, but why should the admissions committee care that you have research experience? So maybe you're someone who actually wants to be like a clinician scientist, like you actually want to do a PhD right after your DDS. So do you see like how we're building the relevance, and why are you even bothering telling the committee? So it's just like process of, reflecting on your experiences, asking yourself, why should the committee care? And you go through all of your experiences, and then you take a break because it's a lot of reflection, a lot of work. And then you come back on a later day when your brain isn't like just overloaded with all the information that you got back from your, like, that you recalled. And then you look at things that show the most about you. So there may be like similar activities. Maybe you were club president for 30 clubs, but all of them are similar, right? So you want to show that you are a diverse applicant, you have different kind of skills, and you have what it takes to go through dental school and to get out of dental school as well and enter the profession. So I can't tell you what you should focus more on, because you're going to tell me based on what you did and what you learned and why is that relevant to you pursuing this profession.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Zoha, for this amazing and thought-provoking answers. And we are very grateful that you could be here to share your knowledge and expertise with us.
We'd also like to thank all our viewers for staying with us until the end of this event. We hope you found this information really useful. I know for sure that I did. And so now we're going to have the Q&A session. So you guys can go ahead and ask any questions in the chat below, or you can unmute yourselves and ask any questions if anyone has any questions. Go ahead, Kamina, you can unmute yourself.
Great. Hi, Zoha. Thank you so much for sharing your insight. It's been really helpful. I was just wondering, what are your tips maybe for writing personal statements that have pretty limiting character counts? Like, for example, Western recently opened their application and their personal statement, I think, is 2,500 characters. So how do you suggest going about doing that and still being able to address all the things that you've mentioned today?
Thanks, Kamina, for your question. Quality over quantity. Look at your personal statement that you've already written perhaps for another school and see if there are any different experiences that show the same thing about you. You can combine the experiences if you want. You can also take a bigger picture approach. So instead of, having multiple experiences, you can have one experience and really dive deep into what that experience is and revolve your whole personal statement around that personal experience. So for example, I don't know if that made sense, but if I was rewriting my whole personal statement and they told me, Zoha, you can't talk about the things that you talked about earlier, I'll pick one thing, which is, I think that me completing my master's, given the circumstances that I went through, was a big deal. So I would revolve my whole personal statement around that one big experience and how, because I went through so many things, I learned so much. I developed so many skills over time. So that's one approach. Another thing you can do is just look at your personal statement, read it, give it to another person, and tell them that if there's anything that they think is not really strong enough to be in a personal statement or convincing, have someone else do the hard work for you, which is delete sentences and paragraphs, because trust me, it will be hard for you to do it yourself, but somebody's got to do it. And your friends are a great candidate to delete those paragraphs and sentences for you that don't serve any purpose to your personal statement. I don't know if that's helpful, if that makes sense.
That definitely is. Thank you.
Okay, of course.
Yes, if you want to unmute yourself, you can ask your question as well.
Hi, Zoha. So I just have a quick question because I noticed on your Google form for the services that you offer for the personal statement, it says that there's a max of 800 words, right? But as you know, for U of T, it's 2 pages, which obviously goes much over 800 words. So then what what's the difference? Like, what have you done with students that are requesting for 2 pages, but your max is 800?
Yeah, so there's a long story behind it, but I'm in the process of updating it. I just haven't been able to go back to the form. The reason I said 800 words is because sometimes, well, before when I had page limit, I would get personal statements with 8-point font, so everything fits in one page, and I was reading like thousands of words. So you can still submit more than 800 words, but you'll just have to calculate how that ends up being. But last week, somebody told me that I should just have, Word for the cost. So I'll change that, but it's just being really crazy with school. But definitely, like, I'll change that, and I'll just message me and we'll talk in detail.
Okay, and when is the last day you would be offering editing services, like the last day?
I have no idea. I just close it when I'm overwhelmed, when I open it, when I get through what I needed to get through. Yeah.
Okay,
Just
so
message me. Honestly, the thing is, a lot of times, like, I'll close the form, but if you message me and you tell me you need something done, like, most of the time I'll do it, but it's just that sometimes I don't want to have the form open because I feel like I don't have control over how much influx there is when the form is just open there.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Of course.
Rustin, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. First, I want to say thank you to Zoha. It was great and it was very useful information. I have a very short question. Like, if I want to start my personal statement from tomorrow, what's the first thing that I should do? Like the first step for everyone here that wants to start their personal statements from tomorrow.
So before you even sit on your Word document, you need to go outside in a park, and as you watch the birds, you need to ask yourself, why dentistry? And you need to sit with that question until you have solid reasons, 2 to 3, 4 sometimes as well, those reasons to add to your personal statement. And those reasons will show through your personal statement. And the reason I say why you need to come up with those or sit with that question is that, again, sometimes we have these external expectations put on us that we're going to grow up to be a dentist for whatever pressures of life that we go through, that we don't really sit with that question and ask ourselves, like, what are my reasons to pursue this profession? Because I am the one who's going to be living with this decision. I'm the one who's going to have to stay up at night and study pathology, which is going to be me tonight. But the point is, ask yourself those questions, because until you have those reasons, I think your personal statement is going to be just a description of what you've done, which I think is not a strong personal statement.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sharza, do you want to go next?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Zoha, for your great explanations. My question is about putting specific accomplishments on a personal statement. Do you think is that fine to put the link for, let's say, a specific award or a journal paper if we have on the personal statement, or should we avoid putting links and sharing it, like those kind of directions?
I'll tell you what I did for U of T, because the format, there's not as many formatting requirements, right, for the personal statement. So I wanted, like, one of my reasons was that I wanted to do dental public health research. So that was like my one reason of pursuing like dental school, right? So I wanted to show them that, hey, I have research interest and I have research experience as well. So I ended up adding footnotes. So what I did is I would say, having done a master's in public health, I've contributed to research in the Sustainable Development Goals and water access, which is very relevant to how you study access to dental services as well in different communities. So then I had a superscript 1, right? So then in the footnote, I had the whole citation, APA format, Anjum, the rest of the authors, name of the article, year it was published with journal. And because there's no word limit, you can have your footnote like 5-point font, but you're still getting your point across, and it's not taking up that main space in the main personal statement. Another way you can address this is that, for example, there is a word count limit. You can just have the first author and then comma. If you're not the first author, comma, your last name at all, comma, year, bracket close. Because you want to have your name there. So that's like another way you can address it, but yes, add your publications and your poster presentation.
Yeah, that's a smart choice, actually. I've never heard of it. Thank you.
I mean, they didn't say anything. I got into the program, so I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Ajam, you want to go next?
Hello, Zoe. I just first wanted to say thank you so much for your time and your answers that you gave tonight. And my question is, do you think like it's a good idea to add dental jargons like in the personal statement to show interest and commitment to the field? Like, should we use, normal people words, or should we use, higher level dental words to make it, show,
You want to show off that you know about the profession.
not show off. I mean,
I know
it's
what
more
you
like
mean.
yeah, show an interest in the field.
Yeah. My question is, how did you become familiar with those dental jargon? Like, are you Googling it, or is this something you already know?
Through the studies, you would eventually, come across these words.
Yeah.
And if you naturally come across, is that like what you would recommend that we use it?
No. The reason I'm asking that question is sometimes what people do is they would want to talk about, I don't know, they had their teeth filed when they were getting ortho treatment, and they would look up what that is, and they would add that to the personal statement when they didn't like learn that organically. But they just want to like use those jargon words to show the reader that they know what they're talking about. The other side of this coin is you worked at a dental clinic as a receptionist for a summer, you volunteered somewhere, you shadowed somewhere, and that's where you learned those things. I think if you're using that jargon in context of an experience, I think that's completely fine. But if you're just dropping dental jargon just as seasoning on your personal statement, I don't think that's a good idea. Also remember that not everybody on the admission committee is a dentist. For example, people who are part of the admission services, people like the registrar, the staff, like they may not understand that dental jargon. So that's another point you might want to consider.
Okay, thank you so much.
Alireza, you can ask your question.
Hey Zoha, I just wanted to say a big thank you for all your help.
Sorry, I don't think I got that.
You're cutting out.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say a big thank you for like all your help and all your tips that you gave us today. Just wanted to ask a question if like I know a lot of people have like their parents or like their family member as a dentist, and I think you alluded to it a little bit in the presentation as well. I just wanted to know how do you make, because I think there's gonna be a lot of people who have that, oh yeah, my dad or my mom gave this person a smile, like as a kid I thought that experience was like, oh, it's like a life-changing experience. I was wondering like if you have any tips on how you can like have that interaction with your parents stand out.
That's a tough question. There's different ways that you can go about. One of them is, actually, this is something that I think about now too. Like I have a classmate whose parent is a dentist, but they want to show that they have shadowing hours. So they ask their dad to, connect them with another dentist so they can get shadowing done, but it doesn't look like it's coming. Like they can get shadowing done at their dad's clinic too, but because there's that conflict of interest, they're going to like another dentist. But I think to answer your question, again, like one of the questions that I think it was Rustin who asked, what's the first thing you should do? And I said, you need to sit down. Like, yes, maybe there was an expectation for you to grow up and become a dentist because you were born in a family of dentists. But I think that on its own is not enough. Like dentistry is a stressful profession. Dental school's hard. And if you're just going to dental school because it's an expectation from the society or the family, it's going to be really, really hard. So sit with yourself and think, okay, if I was to put my family's expectations on the side, what are my reasons? You know, maybe you were shadowing someone and you saw something, for example, an ortho case, and you thought, well, that changed somebody's life, right? So maybe that's the kind of impact you want to have on people as well. So you're still using experiences that you saw in your dad's or mom's clinic, for example, but you're still providing a nuanced picture of who you are and why you want to be in this profession, rather than, okay, I grew up and I was told you're going to be a dentist, or I have no other reason. So really like think of your own reasons, disconnecting from what is expected of you. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
Liba, you can go next.
Hi, I'm not sure how to word this question, but I was just wondering, how can you judge your reasons from the perspective of the admissions committee? Because there are some reasons that I'm interested in this field, but I don't know how it'll be perceived, specifically in terms of the art aspect of dentistry. And I don't know if that's something that will come off as immature to view it from that perspective. So I was just wondering if you have any insight on using different experiences and how that might come off as.
I'm not sure. Do you have an example that you want to share? Because there's different reasons that are wrong for different reasons.
Yeah, it's just like a part of the like it's like a very small reason in my personal statement that like art has been something that I've been interested in, and working with my hands is kind of like, I worded it better in my statement, but right now I can't really think. But yeah, it was kind of in that angle that, you know, I worked with my hands growing up and like doing art as a side hustle, and working with my hands in the profession is something that interests me as well.
I think that's a perfectly legitimate reason for wanting to pursue a profession. The other side is 9 out of 10 personal statements have one of the reasons saying that I want to pursue this profession because of the ability to do things with your hand. That doesn't mean you shouldn't add it. It means you need to show why. So my question to you is, or actually you can write about manual dexterity, but my question to you is, why does it matter, right? Why is your interest in manual dexterity important for you? And why do you care that you are in a profession that helps you do that? So you don't have to answer this question, but sit with that question and really ask yourself, why? Why does it matter? And I hope that gives you an insight into what else to add and how to make that reason much more impactful and convincing for the reader.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Does anyone still have any questions? So I guess that's all our questions for today. And of course, you can always reach us on our Discord and our Instagram page. And thank you again, Zoha, for all of this very useful answers. We are very grateful for you.
Thank you so much for your time.
I just wanted to give a huge thank you to Zoha. Make sure you check out her Instagram page. Like, she really does have so many things up on her Linktree. Like, just even aside from her services she offers, she has so many free resources that you can check out. Also for DAT, and just like how she said, like, she's actually very supportive. She does reply to your messages, which is very nice. Some people take so long to reply, but Zoha is like really on time. And like, when she doesn't, it's very understandable. It's because she's studying. So I really recommend my experience I've had with Zoha. She's really also helped with counseling. So if you're not like ready for writing your personal statement or anything like that, she also does one-on-one sessions where you can talk about what really is like your journey of like wanting to go towards dental school. You can be first year, second year, it's never too early to think about that. I feel like the second you step into undergrad, you not necessarily think about what your profession should be, but think about where you want to take yourself. And Zoha is a great role model. She's a great person to reach out for advice. So yes.
Thank you, Shamim, for your kind words. I do want to leave this like virtual space by sharing like some positives in, you know, this environment where everything is just so competitive. Pre-dental journey is hard. And there were times when I was applying to schools and all I heard was rejection, especially from like some schools in the States. And when I was waiting for U of T response, I was hanging on to my sanity by the thinnest thread that has ever existed on this planet. And I told my parents that, you know what, I don't know if I'll be able to apply again if I got rejected from U of T and then Western came like afterwards. And it was just such a tough time for me. And like being in third year now, I see how that journey shaped me into a person that I never thought I would become. And I hate to say this because I don't believe in dragging people through hard time to make them resilient, but I do think that the pre-dental journey that I went through made me a more resilient student, that now I'm able to work hard and just look at my past self and just be grateful to her and, you know, just give her a good job for standing there, just doing the work that needed to be done. So at the end of the day, this journey is 100% worth it. You just have to wait. It may not happen this year, but that doesn't mean it will never happen. So keep trying and reach out for help if you need it. Everybody's helpful, and just don't give up if this is your true calling. If you have your 3-4 reasons, I will see you at one of the dental conferences as a student in a couple of years. So all the best to everybody, and please reach out if you have any questions or if I can help in any way.
Thank you so much for your time, Zoha. Okay, so I think that's the end of our meeting, unless anyone else has anything else to say. No, I think we're done, Nikki. Thank you so much.
Yeah, if you have any questions, just DM Zoha.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bye,
Okay,
guys.
everybody.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Take
Guys.
care. Bye.